I really wanted to come back here to Greeley to not only, when I was having the community dinner, and we do an annual community dinner, my timeline was real tight because we're doing a NORTHCOM exercise, well, SpaceCom exercise, and then right after that I got to go immediately to Germany, and I said, we're going to do this. We're going to squeeze this in because it's that important. And what I highlighted to the team is there's 3 reasons I wanted to come, even if it's just for a day. Fly in to Greeley and fly into Fairbanks and drive down to Greeley is because, one, I wanted to see the 49th team. I also wanted to do the luncheon, the community luncheon, and I wanted to do this town hall because the last town hall I did was the first one I've done with the Greeley community, and I thought it went well because I got a lot of feedback from you all, and I took that feedback and made my staff make a task list to work through. Now, everything didn't get solved, based off of resources and some of the challenges we're still working through, but we're going to continue to try to punch through those challenges, and again, we'll see where this goes, and again, I'll be back in March, so you all can continue to hold me accountable for the challenges you see. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to paint the landscape a little bit here. I'm fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with the Army senior leaders, and we get to converse a lot about what's the priority to the Army and what's priority to the department, and how are the resources prioritized accordingly. So within the Army, obviously, and within OSW, homeland, protecting the homeland is the #1 priority. And as the National Defense Strategy comes out, and we, they've done the FACER piece, the unclassified piece, but everything's pretty clear that the homeland is going to be prioritized, and what Greeley does and how Fort Greely's aligned to the homeland. I tell you, the future is bright for this installation and this mission set because of what right now it's the only real homeland defense assets that we have, minus the stuff we're doing in NCR, but that's on a much lower scale. And when you're talking defending the homeland, this place does it, and does it much better than the movie. Does it. So I'm very confident that we wouldn't have the coin flip discussion when talking about defending this homeland. But as we modernize what we're doing with our homeland defense mission, and as Golden Dome comes into play, and we look at potentially expanding this mission set, again, it's bright for this mission set. The Army's also been told you're going to grow additional resources, and right now, to grow by 5%. And right now, the Chief of Staff of the Army is trying to figure out, how do I grow the Army 5% without increasing our top line in funding? And it's mandated from the Office of the Secretary of War. So there are a lot of, when you start looking at resources and more resources being available for other things, there's limited amount of resources and more directives moving forward. Very fortunate enough in SMDC, as we are a significant resource and partner here at Fort Greely. Our command at SMDC also continues to grow. We added 2 Army Air and Missile Defense Command under my command, so we added 2 2-star or division level type size organizations under this command, which gives me the flexibility to flex forces across the homeland and globally if necessary. And the NORTHCOM commanders asked me to stand up what's called JTF Gold. Some of you may have seen a little bit about that, but essentially that's us from an operational perspective, focusing on the homeland from a missile defense perspective. So all of these pieces come into play as you hear the homeland has become the priority for the current administration and for the Department of War and for the Army. So I guess your question is, so where are the resources to be able to do that? And I agree with you. There are the resources. So, Greeley is getting a lot of attention now. Unfortunately, because an article that was written about our soldiers aren't eating and there's no food at Greeley. So however you want to take that or move with that, but we all know the truth around here in what's related. But the goodness in all of that is there's been a lot of interest in Fort Greely, where now you have senior leaders in the Army opening up the map going, bam, right there is Fort Greely. Let me go see what they're doing out there. And I say, come on out, because you really don't appreciate Fort Greely until you fly into Fairbanks and then drive up here and really experience the remoteness of this site and some of the challenges of this site and why the resources are required for this site. So we have an incredible opportunity. Your garrison commander has incredible opportunity as our Chief of Staff of the Army and his Sergeant Major of the Army are going to come to Greely personally their original focus was the dining facility, but we're going to expand that focus, and she's going to take full opportunity to let him hear, hey, here are ways that those resources, as the Army's declining, another thing I forgot about, the Army says you will reduce, not the Army, is the department says you will reduce by 30% your service budget across the Army, and you will reduce 30% in resourcing across the Army. So the Army is passing that down to the units, and we, MCOM and NV as an SMDC command, are working through how do we prioritize that funding to be able to get after our mission set, but work through a declining budget that impacts so many as we move forward. So again, having the Chief of Staff of the Army here and echoing and relaying our challenges and our concerns and how he can continue to help us with some of the facility improvements, continue funding some of the service contracts is going to be incredibly important as we move forward. And that's going to happen next month, which is, I'm glad, because we want it to happen immediately. Because as we go through the budget cycle, seeing it, we'll finally get a budget, hopefully, before the 31st. And then we'll go from there. So that's kind of the landscape that I wanted to highlight. And now really it's just, we can pick back up the discussion for those of you that were here last time, and we'll go from there. And I'll answer the best I can. I'll tell you transparently. And if I have to phone a friend to the garrison commander, I'll phone a friend because some of the issues she's working deeply and closely with. But I'd open up to whoever has a question or comment.
I actually have two, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
One for somebody that couldn't be here. She was asking if some of the people in DPW got realigned underneath Wainwright. Is there plans on having all DPW go under Wainwright or bringing those people back to Greely?
Yeah, I'm not tracking realigning everybody, but again, this is the phone a friend piece that I'm going to jump to immediately. And but this is a team effort, so
it's absolutely, it's an Army, always an Army team effort. And I will probably end up phoning a friend as well. But the bottom line is no, all of DPW isn't going to fall under Wainwright. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, right? Like we talked about it. There were topics about it in the DEOCs and some of the concern. But this is a process that's happened over the course of 3 years, but really got solidified last year when we had like the great reduction in our DPW workforce. And so one, this was trying to help ease the burden on you, but it was also to expand the knowledge within the DPW workforce. And this is where I'm going to phone a friend.
So I want to go back and pin it down and say it without any doubt or hesitation that every paragraph and line number associated with the derivative UIC, which is Whiskey 6 Lima 7 1 Bravo, which is us, is here to support that man's mission in his role as a senior commander, including those that are supervised at current in DPW by DPW representatives at Fort Wainwright. It was a strategic move to force support from our higher headquarters organically to get us skill sets here at Fort Greely, as well as getting them down here, because now it's in their DP map. They're responsible to 2 senior commanders. They have to be being supervisors of the workforce that's here as much as it is at Fort Wainwright, right? So if they miss the mark, where do we have 2 streams of accountability, conduct and performance? If they're refusing to do it, that's conduct. If they are struggling to do it, that's poor performance. So I've said it without any hesitation. We're all here for this mission, for this senior commander. And if they're supervised by somebody at Fort Wainwright, that's just to get resources here. But I completely understand the concern, and we're going to have more conversations about it as a workforce, because it's the life that we live, right? So as we uncover new second, third, fourth order effects, we're going to have a different conversation, and we're going to work through it together.
And that's what I would say, right? I know this isn't a projection microphone. This is because we are recording for those that couldn't be here today. But just to add on what Mr. Enlow said, we need to have that conversation. If one, we understand the concern, but if the performance, because it's not happening, we have to know that so we can have a conversation with Colonel Campbell and Mr. Fromm about the support. But we can't do anything if we don't know, right? And so the intentions, I think, when the transition happened were good, but if we can't enforce them, then it was, we're just still sitting here frustrated, right? So please let us know if you aren't getting the support that you need from those supervisors, if they're not coming down. And then if we can't get the support from, our Wainwright leadership, like that's when our senior commander can also, add a little bit something, because that is what he does. He is our advocate at all of the levels. But let us know so we can do that.
Great question.
You all might as well stay up here. I mean, because it really doesn't matter how they get the response, as long as they get the information. That's the most important part.
Okay. Next question is for the MDC and the garrison, DPW speaking. Resources, it seems like we got a fence in between some of our resources. Is there plans to combine those resources?
Specifically, what resources are you
Like
referring to?
snow plowing, building maintenance, things like that.
So, thanks, friend. So yes, there is a fence, right? Like there's an actual fence and a proverbial fence that sometimes we feel. And like snowplow, for instance, why we don't do that service on the MDC, you're all familiar with baseline services, correct? Like, our baseline services. What happens on the MDC is above our baseline of services, which is why SMDC has taken upon themselves to ensure that snow plowing and grass cutting gets done through contracts. And so...
and you heard the 30% decrease in contracts, but anyways, keep going.
Yes, and so right now we are looking for creative solutions to see how we can help with the 30% reduction, but also eliminate those perceived barriers that we have. But that also goes hand in hand with what we're doing with the Missile Defense Agency, with MDA. There are things that will be coming up, agreements between us, because we have great allies and partners within MDA to help aid us in emergency type services, because right now, Mr. Todd Hayden and you all in the DPW team have been doing fantastic work to keep us moving forward. But we've been phoning a friend through our senior commander and his DESENG, his engineering extraordinaires at SMDC to help us through emergency type situations. And so right now we are actively in the process of trying to find avenues in which we can collaborate together as a team, because we're in the same community, all working towards the same goal. So yes, there's a fence and it feels like it is, because there is kind of a difference, but we're trying to see where we can be more creative in streamlining some of those things.
And what I would highlight from the SMDC side, I highlighted the 30% reduction in services, so it's not an automatically pass on across. Some missions are more important than other mission sets. And I essentially told my command that I'm going to look very hard on any reduced mission services that affect Fort Greely, because, again, I stood up here and said you are the #1 priority, and so I have to put my money where my mouth is to that same extent, because if we aren't fulfilling some of the services here, it comes at a cost. For example, if you're not doing the snow removal type stuff, then the security system gets backed up, and then we have to put extra soldiers out. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to put our soldiers in that type of situation where they're not optimally maintaining a site. So, you know, we're going to continue focusing on the service because it's important to national security and it's important to this mission set. So we'll look for those balances, but I'm always going to lean towards the priority and mission set moving forward, and that's this location when it comes to our command and what we do, because we do a lot of stuff from Kwajalein Atoll, space domain awareness, to Greely defending the homeland, to space capabilities. But at the end of the day, you got to anchor in. And that's one other thing the Chief of Staff of the Army told us. He goes, as we cut your budget and cut your services, you come back to me and tell me what you're not going to do. And you know, and I don't think the right answer is to go say, hey, we're going to not do something that's going to impact our ability to defend a site that's the most strategic site in the homeland. But all of those conversations will be had. You'll hear a lot of people talking about things, cutting services, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's going to prioritize where we reduce services at, where we accept risk across command and for me across Greely moving forward. And I think so hopefully that answered your question. Another piece I think I should have did up front is address some of the previous questions that came up at the last and some of the actions we did. So I'll just go through randomly because I was looking at the list of actions before I came in here that the staff was working off of. And some of them they recommend to close, and I haven't closed because I think we still need to do more. So the first one was, I was asked about some of the hiring actions. And specifically, it was the HVAC hiring, safety personnel hiring. And at the time, we were in the hiring freeze, still in the hiring freeze. But we were looking at how do we, before the winter, hire these essential personnel. Specifically, it was the HVAC piece that was highlighted as part of that. And now we are in the winter, going through the winter, and a lot of that never really changed, unfortunately, even though we took and pushed forward exception of policies for those hiring actions. The department really anchored in on not approving any exceptions to the hiring freeze as we move forward and continue with DRPs and shaping the size of the workforce moving forward. We still pushed it forward, and now I think we're at the point now where we're able to hire those aspects of the hiring freeze moving forward. And now I'll really turn it over to the garrison commander to kind of highlight, now that we're able to start hiring, kind of what's the next step.
And so we actually had a town hall last week, sir, to talk about the news of the hiring freeze
Okay, so
until
you
the end of the
already covered
FY.
that. Okay.
And so that was, I believe, Tuesday. And so the workforce was told we can't hire for the rest of the FY. Continue to submit your ETPs. That's why ETPs are so important. Well, late breaking news we received from MCOM last week, Friday, was that we can now start hiring our DES and DPW. And so Mr. Enlow will work with the team to get those PDs great so we can start pushing them out and getting people hired. Obviously, it's always a challenging time here in this environment to be able to get amazing people, but we were able to get you, so I'm sure we can get more amazing people, right? So we just got to work on those PDs and those hiring packets and get them pushed up so we can actually start hiring.
And that was an action that we took out of the last town hall, and I kept open in our tracker until we actually hire the people. Because if I would have closed it at the ETP, you see where we still are. So now that we have the approval to hire, until those people are hired, then Alyssa will say, yep, we hired them, then we'll take that off of our tracker and stop tracking. So that's kind of how we're monitoring. One of the other ones were, which we hear a lot about now, is the dining facility, because at the time we had already stopped doing the weekend piece, and we were moving towards, we hadn't quite got there yet, but we were moving towards a evening dinner meal. And you know, now we have AMC coming in, bringing in a contract, so we're able to go back to breakfast, lunch, and dinner during the week, and we're still assessing options for how we move forward with the weekends as we move forward with AMC as providing the funding. You know, SMDC, we were ready to come in and start funding it ourselves out of my budget, but when you talk about those budgets, when you pay for something, you give something somewhere else to be able to do it. But we felt it was important enough to do that, and so. But fortunately, AMC came in and with the contract, and now we'll be back up to that piece with that. So we'll probably now close that action as we move and as AMC continue to look at weekend options. But we have other options we're doing within SMDC Command to supplement our soldiers who won't be able to do it over the weekend piece. Okay, open it back up, and if I think of any more, I'll highlight them as they come up.
I had a question.
Okay.
So you talked a little bit about how SMDC is expanding, sir. You keep talking now that we are the priority. Could you just articulate a little bit like what happened with Kwajalein, because Kwajalein was a big push last year, and just kind of highlight like the real emphasis on why we're the priority now.
So you no longer have a rival now. You had a rival in Kwajalein Atoll, because I was the senior commander for Kwajalein Atoll and Fort Greely. Imagine those two, you know, Kwajalein Atoll, an island out in the middle of the Pacific where it's always hot, and then Fort Greely, Alaska, and split between those two. And I would tell you, honestly, as I looked across the command within my first year, we were probably spending 70% of our time and my staff's focus and probably a lot of the resources on Kwajalein Atoll and the Reagan Test Site mission that SMDC does, and the Space Domain Awareness mission that we do for Space Command out at that location. And a lot of that, I don't want to say came at the expense of Fort Greely, but when you're trying to prioritize two strategic locations and you are overly balanced, overly tipped at one, because you know you're looking at two remote sites. Well, when you look at a remote site, and that's, you know, if you ever flown out to Hawaii, now jump in an aircraft and fly 6 more hours out in the Pacific, and it's the only little island out there, and so you know you have your different remote challenges, and so it meant we as SMDC had to focus a lot to figure out ways to balance quality of life and resources out there. Well, Chief of Staff of the Army made a decision. It says, hey, SMDC, that should no longer be your challenge, even though you have the Reagan Test Site out there. We're going to make the USRPAC commander out at Indo-PACOM the senior commander for Kwajalein Atoll. So therefore, he can focus on Kwajalein, which allowed us, we still have the Reagan Test Site out there, but now allows me to leverage more of my resources across the command. I got quite a lot of resources to be able to help focus more. And so I reached out, as soon as I did that, I reached out to Colonel Clark and said, hey, start being a demanding customer to me and find ways that we can shift more of our effort in support of Fort Greely, naturally so, as we look at kind of the additive potential mission sets to Fort Greely as we move forward. And that was another question. See, these questions come back to me. Another question that was asked of me at the Loudon Town Hall, and you hear me constantly talking about resources and future mission set, was, hey, with all of the future potential mission sets out there, will Fort Greely see any additional resources in support of that? And at the time, I really couldn't answer because I really didn't have a full picture of kind of how we're moving forward with Homeland Defense. But as we move forward, I think there'll be opportunities, and I know the garrison commanders had opportunities to talk with those that are working Homeland Defense, missile defense inside of our department, and there may be some opportunities as we continue to modernize our facility here. Additional resources should come that way to support it. Now, how those additional resources will be used across the installation, more to be determined as we continue to move forward in this journey of being more robust of a Homeland Defense architecture. Okay, what else?
Hello, sir, and thank you for being here. This is more not so much as a question as much as just thanking you for the keeping the communication open that we have seen, and then just to state that I can't be more proud of leading the DPW team that has kept this place functional with all those cuts and the people we did not get. We have had problems, we've had challenges, but we have kept this place from turning into an ice cube. And I just want to kind of iterate what you've been saying and everything. As you guys are looking at reorganizing resources, talking, this wouldn't have happened without the team coming together here and the SMD team that I work with down in Huntsville. I think they're called G4 now instead of
G4
Descent
now, yeah.
Engineering, trying to get all the new names as
G4/D9,
everything's
yep.
going. And that is important, that we keep these shared resources moving. If it wasn't for that team's help, we would have been drowning without having some of that key support, and to be able to do it instantly, because we just went through one of the coldest months in history here. And when it's 40 and 50 below, we've got hours, not days, to make contracting decisions, other things. And the things that make Fort Greely so perfect for missile defense is also our challenge because of our remoteness. Contracting really doesn't work very well here. And so the support for our in-house team that is so flexible and willing to move and do things, and so much thanks to so many of these that are, I can't call them expatriates because they're still patriots working for just changed uniform now to the civilian uniform, have kept that mission mindset and have kept things moving forward. So I think I just want to just state that to remind you that everything isn't bad. We've got some good things, but yes, we got some challenges, and I just thank you for the support and to make sure that those communication lines, especially between us and SMDC and MDA, as we start merging, we can keep this going, because our team brings a lot to the table that we can support the mission with.
Absolutely.
Like I say, I can't be more proud of this
Absolutely, and thank you for that, and I appreciate the feedback. And it was funny, I was talking to Scott and Colonel Clark today during lunch, and I said it's amazing how this community continues, even though, because they laid out all the challenges up front before we started getting into the winter months, and which allowed me to lay it out to MCOM of, hey, we need these priority efforts and these exceptional policies because of what we're facing as we turn that corner, and with some of the DRPs and some of the diminishing budget aspects of this. And what I highlight to them, I'm constantly amazed the way this community continues to figure things out, even in tough conditions. And hopefully, again, as I highlighted, as we divested from the Quadrillion Senior Commander piece, that allows my G49 to really focus more of their priority of effort towards Quadrillion and some of the other missions that's running. So thanks for the feedback.
Sir, Brian Allers, LRC Director.
Yep.
Last year, as we went through, we did the FIT process where you went through and realigned all the priorities, like 1 through 62. You had a lot of priorities to balance. But with the reallocation of resources due to the change of mission, are you going to be able to go through and redo the FIP priorities prior to the FIP coming on later this year? And one of the reasons why I ask is I'm working with my different levels of command right now to try and get try and get them to stand up and say, yes, this is a priority for us. But, so I'm trying to align SMDC's priorities, AMC's priorities, ASC's priorities, MCOM's priorities, trying to go across the board. And, I mean, what you do, the information you put out speaks, a lot towards what they're going to follow in behind. So if prior to the FIP coming up this year, if there's an opportunity for them to realign the priorities in that paper that they sent out, that would be a huge help in helping us push the priorities. And then it's also with that, will there be any potential for fiscal resources moving forward with a lot of these projects that are happening here at Greely for funding for charrettes and stuff. Because as you know, once they hit the FIP,
Yep.
they don't go anywhere until they've got charrettes done and so forth.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely, we're definitely, and I appreciate that because of your understanding, and I've been part of this FIT process, the last couple of years in command, and again, balancing what I had in Kwajalein and balancing here, no longer have to focus on Kwajalein now, focusing on here. Absolutely, every year, the commander is going to work with you all on the priorities that we want to push forward in the FIT process, and then we'll submit our priorities. But the way I operate is I listen to you all in the recommendation from the commander moving forward. Now, and absolutely try to align those priorities accordingly, and then manage some of the mission partner priorities with the garrison and prioritizing them all together. We have an incredible opportunity here because I've been part of the FIT process, and I've been several different locations, and I've watched, the Army's put out their priorities for the FIT process in their XORD, and they've laid it all the way out what they've prioritized. And a lot of our stuff fits in there, the Army's prioritization piece. But the key component to the FIT process is the Army senior leaders. And we have an incredible opportunity in February where we can articulate our priorities to the Army senior leaders, and they can firsthand see some of the challenge and why it's so important. The Fort Greely priorities, and not just read and hear, but actually see where we're prioritizing and why we're prioritizing. So I think we have an incredible opportunity this year, specifically, as your commander is going to, close the deal. The art of selling the deal. Close the deal with that opportunity coming up here in February with our Army senior leaders. So yes, anything else to add to that, Alyssa?
And so the FIP hasn't really shook out this year, correct, sir?
Right.
But we're always planning for the next one. You had mentioned planning charrettes. We have a new great opportunity through Fort Wainwright, through USAG Alaska, with the IGSA, the Intergovernmental Service Agreement, and UAF, and potentials to have planning charrettes executed through them. And so Mr. Enlow will be actively working that with Fort Wainwright, because we understand that if you put your money where your mouth is, you're more apt to get some additional funding behind it. And so we'll probably ask you, sir, is because we still have to pay for those excess. We may be reaching out for a little bit of help and assistance from SMDC on that. But yes, acknowledge, and we'll definitely try to art of the deal in February.
We'll see how persuasive you are.
We'll
Okay.
see. Question.
Has there been any discussion like a remote airfield like Allen Army Airfield transitioning to like a Space Force or even the Air Force to manage it, to alleviate that burden off of MCOM? Because MCOM has an impossible task trying to fund everything they have across the board. I guess that'd be my biggest question.
Yeah, no, I have not been part of any conversation. So, and you're right, at Quad, the Army is looking at options of other services potentially providing support to some of those locations because of the preponderance of use of other services. But nothing has come up to my level, anything but Army for the airfield, unless something lately has come up that I'm not tracking, Alyssa. Okay.
No, I think that, so Mr. Ormsby was part of the kind of realignment where he is pseudo-realigned under Fort Wainwright, USAG Alaska, but he does both, and it can be demanding, and that's just us trying to figure out additional positions and how we can work that out.
Okay.
To help assist. But as of right now, no, we're not giving our airfield away.
Justin Hogriff, DPW. Just wondering, with the potential relocation of Spacecom to Redstone, do you see any benefits or efficiencies from that move? And could that benefit us here at Fort Greely as well as SMDC? Over.
Okay. The last part, I got your first part. What was the last part reference? You said SMDC?
Yeah, could it benefit
Yeah, okay.
SMBC and or us
Okay.
here at Fort Greely?
There's great opportunities and synergies. You know, you can look at it from several different aspects. You know, I talked to you about that dispersion. You know, the dispersion's fine because General Whiting is a phenomenal boss and allows me to freedom of maneuver and allows us to integrate electronically where we have. So now he's coming in, and we at SMDC, we have a pretty amazing headquarters there and plenty of room, so we're able to actually share some of our facilities with Spacecom to allow them to move rapidly as they're awaiting the build of their headquarters. Yeah, it's always when you have your higher headquarters next to, there's a lot of efficiencies, whether staff coordination or officer, non-commissioned officer progression. So now we're able to get officers from Spacecom directly into SMDC at my headquarters in Huntsville, or from a leader development perspective, transition officers and non-commissioned officers to a COCOM level staff and get joint credit. So I see a lot of opportunities and benefits from Space Command being right there in the vicinity of it. Now, the way we're operating now is great also because I'm fortunate to have two command headquarters. I have headquarters in Colorado Springs right across the street from Space Command and one in Huntsville. So I have connectivity with Spacecom at both locations. Okay, well, again, it's always great to come see the great team here at Fort Greely. And again, I'll be back here in March time frame and look forward to continuing the dialogue. Hopefully that'll be after we have your commander, the art of closing the deal. We'll be able to provide some update after she closes the deal on how we move forward. No pressure on her whatsoever.
None to let them leave. Something in writing.
Close the deal. But we'll take these questions and I'll add them to where appropriate, to our tracker. And then when I come back in March, where I have an update, I'll provide it. And if there's other areas you all want to discuss, I'll be more than willing to discuss during that forum. And as other aspects start to come to clear with some prioritization and funding, hopefully by then we'll have a budget and we'll no longer be operating off of CR, so we'll have more clarity of where we're going to prioritize and spend our money across the command and across the garrison. So thank you again for everything that you all do. Like I said, this is an amazing community. Special place, it really is, special place. You know, that's why I prioritize coming here as many times as I come, and I plan to come back here in March. Special place. Like I said, the people are amazing. That's why my wife normally comes with me. She wasn't able to make it because she was stuck in DC, but she just loves the atmosphere here and the people. You all are just amazing. You are. And I've had a chance to, you know, get out into the community, visit the schools, eat at the restaurants, and be part of the community. So I just want to thank you all for what each one of you all do. And again, Greeley is a special place, and we got to continue to prioritize Greeley as we move forward. So thank you all.